Good evening. My pleasure to welcome you to a regular meeting of the Oak Harbor City Council. Today is November 8th. It is 6 p.m. I'd like to call our regular meeting to order and announce that Councilor Tara Heisen will be arriving a little late for this meeting, but she plans to be here. She has another meeting she's attending at this time. We normally start our meetings with an invocation, and I'd like to invite you to stand and for a moment of silence this evening. Our Pastor Josh from Life Church, I understand, has injured his back, and I'd like to hope him wellness soon and hope he's feeling better. We'll start with a moment of silence. I'll invite you to stand for that, and then I'll turn and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. So please join me in a moment of silence. Okay, join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we start off. You have an agenda in front of you, and if there's no changes to that, we'll move on to our citizen comment period. Citizens may comment on subjects at this time on subjects of interest not listed on the agenda or items listed on the consent agenda. To ensure comments are recorded properly, please state your name clearly into the microphone. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes to ensure all citizens have sufficient time to speak. Also, comments regarding candidates or ballot measures are not allowed under state law. Individuals participating in public comment are asked to refrain from speaking on these topics during the comment period. So I think we have first to sign up this evening is Skip Potilla. Skip? Nice to see you again.
Well, good to see all of you too. Skip Patilla, or William Patilla, 1090 Southeast Hathaway Street. I'm here today regarding the North Whidbey Community Harvest, the free Thanksgiving dinner that we put on over at the Elks each year. This is our 17th year of putting this event on, and the entire community is welcome. It's a organization or a event that's totally run by volunteers. We have roughly 400 slots that we fill throughout the day to make this happen. And it's funded through donations by the community, businesses, organizations, and individuals. I've already passed out a lot of the donation forms to folks, but anyone that is interested in making a donation can do so either at the door. We have a donation jar, or you can drop one off at Frazier's Gourmet Hideaway with Scott Frazier. He's our vice president and executive chef for the event. Once again, we'll have the smoked turkeys, deep fried turkeys, ham, all the fixings, hors d'oeuvres, pumpkin, pecan, apple pies. So it's a truly community event that everyone looks forward to, and that's what our aim is. It's to ensure that everyone who comes to join us at the Elks Lodge has a good meal and an exceptional time. So far, we've been able to meet that bill, and once again, it was started in 2001 by Keith Bartlett and Jack Stiltz. Keith, once again, passed away during the third year preparations, and we kept it going. We also deliver meals, and there's a number. It's 360-240-1887. Anyone desiring to volunteer can call that number and leave your name, telephone number, and a brief message. Or the other purpose for that line is the dinner request line, because we also deliver meals to those in the community that can't get out, whether you're ill, elderly, working, or just can't get out for whatever reason. call that number and leave your name, telephone number, and a brief message, and our delivery coordinator will get with you and deliver however many meals you want. And we've got one gentleman that calls every year and has 11 meals delivered because his family's coming up to join him, and he can't get out to join us. So, you know, it's we take pride in being able to provide this service to our community. And once again, it is truly a community event. You never know who you're going to run up against or see at this event, and everyone's welcome. Of course, if you got someplace to go, you know, family, that's great. That's the whole purpose. But we just want to provide a place for anyone and everyone in the community to come and join us. Thank you.
Thank you, Skip. Okay, anyone else for public comment? Even if you didn't sign in, you're welcome to make comment, okay? Seeing none, we'll move on to item number 4, our consent agenda. Looks like we have items A through H. Anyone concerned? Okay, those will be approved as presented then. And I have a couple of comments under mayor's comments, and that's section number 5. I already mentioned that Councilor Heisen will be coming a little bit late this evening. I would like to draw your attention to the new artwork on display behind us here. This is art by Phyllis Drummond. Phyllis works with the watercolor medium, the pastel medium, and the graphite pencils. Inspiration comes from every face and from every landscape, especially the landscapes in the Pacific Northwest. She finds that her artwork is a way of connecting more fully with both the physical and the spiritual world. Born and schooled in Georgia, Phyllis turned early from art studies to a discipline considered more practical. She continued her art studies through art associations and workshops. After retiring in 2006, she and her husband moved to Whidbey Island. They had come to love Washington through regular visits with their relatives living there. Phyllis is a member of Pin Cove Gallery, Whidbey Allied Artists, and Pacific Northwest Art School, and she participates in the annual Coupeville Arts and Crafts Festival. So thank you to Phyllis. And also, at this time, I would like to thank a local Whidbey Island artist for a gift, and I'll hold this up. And Hannah is with us this evening in the back of the room. I think Hannah Dunn is a local Whidbey Island artist, well-versed in several mediums. Oak Harbor has been her home for many years, after first serving here with the Navy and then meeting her husband and deciding to permanently stay. Hannah is originally from Northwest Montana, where the wilderness and ranch life inspired her art. Traveling to the far and Middle East, Polynesia, and all over Europe with the military has given her the opportunity to experience many diverse cultures and environments. This greatly expanded her personal artistic style. She does commissioned work that has stretched her subject range from landscapes to human and pet portraits, contributing to her work's diversity. She hopes to continue capturing the unique beauty of the Pacific Northwest in her own artistic way. So thank you, Hannah, for the wonderful gift. I know that many of us have many fond memories of the Blue Fox Drive-In, so thanks again. We appreciate that very much. Okay, finally, I'd like to recognize National Hospice and Palliative Care Month. I have a flyer, I believe. Looks like flyers. And this year's theme for November's National Hospice and Palliative Care Month is It's About How You Live. Hospice is not a place. It's a special kind of care that gives you the power to live your life as you choose, to be at home, to be with loved ones, to be pain-free, to be comforted and cared for when you can no longer be cured. It's about how you live. Palliative care can help if you or someone you love is facing a serious illness. You should ask about palliative care. Palliative care provides comfort and support to improve the quality of life for you and your family. Palliative care can be provided at any time during an illness, during and after treatment, from diagnosis on. It's about how you live. So, with that, I'll turn to the council and ask for council comments. It looks like Councilor Wassinger.
Hannah went out the door, but my family has a personal connection to the Blue Fox Drive-In. My in-laws actually owned the Blue Fox Drive-In for many years before the current owner. They would really appreciate that picture. I was going to ask her if she knew the story of where the sign came from and how the Blue Fox got its name. I don't want to go into it right now and take up everybody's time, but it's a really neat story, and I'd like to offer to tell her that story sometime. But I really like that picture. Maybe I could buy one from her if she'd make one for me. But I also would like to thank the community for a really nice Halloween celebration in our community. I appreciate all the businesses and thank them for participating in the various trick-or-treating that they open their doors for and invite families in. I'd also like to thank private citizens. We were out and about and we felt safe, and thank you to those who open their homes, turn their lights on, and let kids have a good time. It's a good community tradition. My girls certainly set a record and came home with about 9 pounds of candy. We're dwindling it down slowly. We're getting there. I'd also like to make a serious comment. Between our last meeting and now, I notice on Facebook sort of some comments and a lot of feedback on the windmill being taken down. And I've talked to Dr. Merriman about this, and a common theme that struck me and that really sort of spoke to me and concerned me was that many of the comments, people felt like that they weren't aware of what was going on, that they didn't have notice, that we were making the decisions that we were and going through that process. And I thought, how can I help? How can I fix that? And sort of thinking through, I thought, why don't we have an official City of Oak Harbor Facebook page. So I think an idea that I have is to post on our official city Facebook page and any other social media accounts that we have when our agendas are posted for public notice on the website. I think that then that way, I could share it, any concerned citizen could share the agenda, and be aware of what's coming up. I think it's important for the Facebook users to have that snapshot right in front of them so that they're aware and that they know what the decisions we're making and have a chance to be a part of the public process. That's really important to me. So if that's something, I don't want to spring anything on staff that they're not prepared to do. So if that's something that's going to take some time to figure out how to do that, how to make it work, I'm certainly willing to bring it up next meeting, or if a motion is needed, I can certainly do that. Those are my thoughts on that. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Servades.
Thank you, Mayor. It's Wednesday night, and we're having a council meeting, which means there must have been something that offset this. It was obviously Election Day. I know this side of the dais had it fairly easy this year, but I just wanted to applaud everyone that threw their hat in the ring, especially those that had contested races. There's a lot that goes into that, and in building community, I think the more people that are involved, as Skip kind of hinted, with 400 volunteers, when you have events like that, that's impressive. But regardless of capacity, anyone that steps up to go through an election, I just applaud them, especially when it's contested, because it's a serious commitment of time and energy. So I applaud everyone that was involved, and not just the winners. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Munns.
Thank you. I also want to say congratulations for the elections and for people stepping the plate. It's not easy. Some people think, oh, well, you were uncontested, or you were, well, you're putting yourself up in front of the public, and good or bad, you take all comments, and we smile about it, and we really think about it and take it to heart. And so it's not like we're not trying to think or pay attention to the community. So thank you for all that ran, and congratulations to everyone, and taking part in our pool levy and stuff to keep our community going and stuff like that. Also, besides the Harvest Fest dinner, this is the beginning month for Help House, our local food bank. And Thanksgiving and Christmas is a time where there's many families that come to visit you, and there's some that just can't afford it for themselves, much less if mom and dad come. So any extra money, they can make $5 go really far, or if you just want to donate some items. But a lot of them, we advertise for them to go to the Harvest Dinner, then they can take that full meal deal with the turkey and potatoes and butter and pie and all of that and make it go farther also. But no one should go without food. So please think about it. This is our community, and we can make a difference. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had a chance to go on a tour last Monday afternoon together with my colleagues in the City Council. That is a tour of the clean water facility. And I would like to thank our city engineer, George Stoll, and project engineer, Brett Abertson, for the clean water facility tour. And the highlight of the tour was going down about 2 or 3 stories down the building, and very exciting to go down there. The construction is progressing very well and on schedule. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Anyone else? Yes, Councilor Olmberg.
Thank you, Mayor. You know, in light of some sad events that have happened in the last month, the score is 84 dead by two people with automatic weapons. And the obvious that always follows those are lots of thoughts, wishes, and prayers. And though they are very important, we really need to step up as individuals to give deep, considerate thought, original thought, to help solving these problems. It's easy for me, for us, to sit here and feel that we are insignificant, but we are not insignificant. Individually, we may be, but as a group, I think we really all have to have original thought about how we're going to solve these problems, because the math doesn't work. This is not the last time it's going to happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Anyone else? That was well said. I totally agree. Okay. We will move on then to public hearings and meetings at this time. Well, maybe I should give the city administrator. But he was gone for part of the day today. I've forgotten all about him almost. Sorry about that, Dr. Merriman.
That's all right.
We do have a clean water facility. I'm into moving the meeting along, you know me, but let's
doing
back
great.
up and turn it over to Dr. Merriman, our city administrator.
Great, thank you. Just a couple quick items. One is we've been working the last couple days, or Nicole and Dina Emery have, to reschedule our workshop, just based on attendance and some different things. We're going to go ahead and move that meeting to the 16th instead of the 15th, and that'll be at the same time from 2 to 5. And then on November 21st, we'll be right back to our regular council meeting dates. This month was a little odd with the holidays and with Election Day, but we will be back on our regular schedule starting in December. At our next workshop on the 16th that I'm talking about, we'll be starting to talk about our legislative priorities. It's that time of year again. And I was able to get a copy of the AWC's legislative priorities, and staff has that. We'll be sending that out to City Council along with last year's list, so you can see if there are things on there we still have an interest in. And it's also a good chance between now and the workshop for everyone to be thinking about what items we might want to add or adjust or edit. So we can have that good conversation on the 16th to start getting that information compiled for our next AWC conference. And then other than that, I just have Brett here for the wastewater treatment plant report.
Mayor?
Well, good evening. It's time for our clean water.
Okay. Brett, could you hold on for just a second here, Councilor Muntz?
I am aware that Representative Norma Smith and a representative from the DNR had a tour of our marina with our harbor master. Do you know how that went, or any details from the conversation about that you can say, or?
I have not heard yet. I just
Okay.
got back this afternoon.
Okay.
I don't know if Mayor
Yeah,
Severance attended.
I can speak a little bit to that. I participated in a meeting to start our discussion about our lease, which will be up a year from this June. They require a one-year notice ahead of time. Representative Smith came to see me on actually another matter, and then during that discussion, we had a discussion about the marina, so she set up a meeting, and so we're opening up a conversation now about that. So, and this is part of it.
Okay, good. Sounds encouraging. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Brett.
We're here for our clean water facility project update. We fly the site once a month, every month, and we actually have got our wall now, one of our walls covered with photographs, which tells you how long we've been working at this. But this was actually our first one that we took, excuse me, in June of 2015. And this is our old park, and we're just getting started on the project, so that's what it looked like. This is what it looked like just in the end of October. From this photo, it doesn't look as dramatic as it is, but when you get in close, it's starting to look like a facility. The membrane building's got its roof on, so we have that building called a dried out, which is a major milestone for us. We have other roofs that are going to be on by the first of the year, so it is moving quite along. And the thing I like to say now is that for all we have above grade, it's like an iceberg. There's twice as much below grade. So I think when the councilman talked about going down the rickety stairs, it's a regular cathedral down there, and we're going to fill it up with stuff. So we're quite excited because it's starting to take form. When you do these drawings over the years, when you see it for real, it starts to be exciting. I do have to announce that our crane will be moving out in January, so it's been sort of a milestone for us, but it's going to be, we're going to have it there for the holidays, and it's going to go. Recent activities, Windjammer Phase 1 park improvements. We have gotten the 90% drawings and reviewed them. They're back into the designers. They're going to have final documents prepared on December 15th. We are putting out packages for GMP number 13 with those. We're going to start bidding in early January. We're not going to try to bid during the holidays. We are continue working on our SCADA software, and we did meet with the Navy to review the lagoon transfer. If you might remember, you approved a letter back in December. So there's going to be quite a bit of work on that, both from not so much from a construction side, but from a staff side, because we have to do lagoon cleaning and a whole bunch of activities. So that's going to be another work effort we'll be doing. Construction-wise, we're pouring concrete. We're coming into about our last 15, 20 pours now, so we're seeing the end of it. Our self-performed contract does remain ahead of schedule and below estimates. We're about 105% of projection at 94% of effort, so holding steady on that. We are backfilling as we move along, and that's actually going to start picking up pretty quickly. A lot of the work is on GMPs number 9 and number 11. GMP number 9 is mechanical, electrical parts of the work, which are full bore right now. 11 is a lot of the roofing, bricking, just general building type stuff, which is pretty busy. Last week we had 115 workers on site, and that's probably going to be our high. We'll start tapering down from that number, but that'll probably continue for a while. We did hit a milestone last week of 250,000 person hours expended. So we do keep track of every labor hour on the project on a weekly basis. So from that June 2015, that's to now. And the interesting thing is, we're estimating right now between 400 and 450,000 person hours by the end of the project. So another 200,000 hours is going to go in the next 10 months. So that gives you an idea of our effort level. We're going with the self-performed wood framing. That's been a bit slow going, but the hammers are ringing now. We are continuing above grade masonry work and the roofing. As I say, we're putting roofs on as fast as we can. The interesting thing is we've been putting CMU wall up for a long time, and now we're going to start moving to the decorative brick. So it's going to start looking nicer. Hopefully we'll start that next week. As Councilman Paga said, we did do a councilor tour last week and appreciated everybody's visit. I hope you were impressed by what's going on. We're very proud of our site. I would like to extend the invitation for people that couldn't make it to call me. I'll be glad to schedule an appointment for you. Also, our new council members coming in, if they'd like to see it, I can certainly set something up for them. Funding, we do have some good news on that. We were sitting on the 29 million for the, because of the legislative capital budget, but DOE contacted us and they're going to fund ongoing projects even though they haven't got that. They've got some way of doing it. So we will be seeing an amendment for that loan amendment coming in pretty soon. That was very good news for us. And we're still pursuing Windjammer Park funding opportunities. We would like to, we haven't got any major decision points for you other than the amendment with SRF, but right now we're on the near horizon. We're going to schedule a special council workshop to discuss our progress and our future activities. There's a lot of things coming together now, so it'd be a good time. I think we did a major workshop about a year ago, so it's a good time to come back. So we haven't got an exact date on that, but it'll be in the near future. Schedule-wise, we're still moving ahead. Brian says we're still going, so right now equipment's arriving right and left, and the big issue that I only think could slow us down is the switchgear, and we're watching that pretty closely.
Excuse me. What did you say is slowing this down, Brett?
The only thing that could slow us down is the switchgear,
Oh, okay.
and we're watching that very closely. If you want to know more about the project, you can reach us at www.ocarbercleanwater.org. You can call us at 914-7000 or our business extensions. Email us at treatmentplant@ocarber.org. And our next community drop-in is Monday, November 20th. Questions?
Any questions? Yes, Councilor Allenberg.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to go back to that switch gear.
Yeah.
Not switch beer, switch gear.
Right.
Okay. We know that there's a potential hang-up in the pipeline at some point right now with
Right now,
switchgear?
that is the critical path for us, and we have it ordered, but we haven't gotten a delivery date set up yet. So that's the only thing that would really concern us. But right now, I think it's probably going to be just fine.
But
but-
you're saying that it concerns you.
Yeah.
Tell me what concerns you in the process.
What happens is that piece of equipment is necessary for us to energize all the rest of the equipment in the plant. And it's always, traditionally, it's a very long lead item, and it's not unusual in our projects for this stuff to get hung up because it's very complex. So, but what concerned us more was the fact that all the hurricanes that were occurring down in the south, there's all of a sudden been some demand on the switchgear, so we're worried about somebody coming in paying extra to bump us on the production line.
So that's the primary source of the potential delay then?
Yeah, and like I say, right now we haven't got anything identified, but that's one we have on our radar.
Okay.
I told you I'd keep you appraised.
Yeah. Thank you, Brent.
Okay, any other questions on that? Thank you. Brett, nice job. So that will conclude the city administrator report. Okay. We will now move on to item number 6A, which is ordinance number 1814, property tax levy. And I see we have our finance director, Patricia Soul, coming to the podium. Welcome, Patricia.
Thank you. So I'm going to go through the property tax calculations.
Could you pull that mic down just a little closer? There you go.
Okay. Gotta be smarter than the thing. Oh, there we go. Okay. So our property tax falls under Initiative 747 under the RCW 84.55. 1% is the maximum limit that we are allowed to increase our levy. If the IPD is greater than 1%, then the 1% limit applies on an ordinance passed by council. We have to pass that ordinance by November 30th for it to get to the county in time for their piece. Last year, we had to discuss if the IPD was less than 1%. You have two stages. You have to pass the ordinance and you have to pass an ordinance for substantial need. This year, we won't have to. The IPD implicit price deflator is at 1.553 this year, and it's the index for the personal consumption expenditures, and it's used under this initiative to measure the inflation rate. And this year we were over 1, so we skipped having to go through a secondary piece. I just put a chart up because I like charts of the, since 2000 or 1998, the implicit price change. There were only 4 years where it went below 1%. I highlighted those in red just so you could see. The levy scenarios with the increase defined. So if we make no change, it's a 0 increase. If we levy the 1% maximum, it would be a 41,786 increase based on the numbers that we've been given by the county. That doesn't include any consideration for new construction, improvements to properties, changes to the assessed property, newly constructed wind turbines, solar, biomass, or geothermal facilities. So basically that's saying that's what it is currently, but they have until the end of the year to give us the true levy amount, but it won't be more than 1% from the year before. I just did the comparison that I did last year because I find it fascinating. Our 1% over since 2001, we've increased 18.42% over those years. 15 years. If we were allowed to do the implicit price IPD number, it would be 32.75, and if we were allowed to use the CPI, it would be 42.2. So it's limited the ability to adjust our property tax, but it's a fact. So it just kind of shows the difference between what's happening with inflation and what we're allowed to increase our property tax. Why is a 1% property tax needed? To keep pace with the long-term impact of inflation, to maintain the existing level of service that we currently provide, and we also included the 1% increase into our 2017 and 18 budget. So we based our budget off of a 1% increase. More graphs. This kind of shows city's revenue since 2003 forward. Gentle, gradual increase. The certified levy history, it shows how much was levied for the same period, 2003 to 2016. This one I found interesting. This is the assessed property value. So if you look at 2008, that was the highest property assessed value for this area. In 2014 was the lowest at $1.5 million. So we're slowly going up. This year we took $107 million increase in assessed value based on the numbers they gave us. It may or may not remain that exact number, but it did go up from $1.7 billion to $1.8 billion. So the certified levy rate follows the assessed. The lower the value of property, the higher the levy. So since our property value went up, the levy, as you see, percent went down a little bit. But we're projected to be at about 2.3. It's too far away for me to see that. 2.305 based on the current numbers that we have. That might fluctuate depending on the other factors that they might add in December. So it's just a projected number. But we also, we're getting close to our maximum statutory rate, which is 3.184. We're fine as long as property values continue to keep going up, but the maximum we as a city would ever be allowed to put into a levy is the 3.184. So that's just something to keep your eye on. The property tax COLA, again, is limited by the IPD. Long-term investments. So what if we don't increase the levy? It will require additional cuts in the amount of $41,786, and these will go forward, impacting our recurring expenses.
Okay, before we ask the council for questions, I'd like to ask the public if anyone has questions or would like to speak to this ordinance. 1814 property tax levy. Okay, seeing none. Patricia, we'll ask for council questions. Councilor Heisen.
Thank you, Mayor. If you could go back to I think it was the last slide or the one before that. Yes, that's that one. And I'm sorry if you said this and I missed it. The city max 3.3 and statutory 3.18, is that based on the proposed increase or what we're currently assessing at?
The statutory limit is set by the state.
Right.
So across our county, we can only maximum levy of 5.9%, and the city's portion is only the 3.184. So we're not there yet.
Okay.
But we're at 2.3. So we're within less than 1% or
Okay. A little
close
bit
to
of
that.
wiggle room there, 2.3,
Yeah.
right as we stand right now?
Yes. Well, yes, as we stand right now.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Yes, Councilor Servades.
Thank you. I speak to this, I think, every year I've been up here because this is a question that I think all of us get, is why can't the city be a better, or is the city, I won't say why can't they, but is the city being the best steward of its resources that it can be? Why do my property taxes go up? Why do we have to pay for all this, but I still want all these services? Could you back up to the graph, please? A little further, a couple of line. There we go. This is a great illustration. We have to pay for things, tires for police cars and, fire trucks and wages. And if we're only increasing this portion of our revenue base at a max of 1%, at some point that math just continues to be more and more challenged. So please, public, as you tune in and you read in the paper that we voted for an increase, know that we're trying to provide those services that you very much want. And graphs like that are a great illustration of over time how that's kind of a losing battle. If we're not allowed to keep up with, in this case, the implicit price deflator is a factor of inflation, then it becomes tougher and tougher to provide those same services. So I will support this just because of the math of it long term to continue to provide those services. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else?
Mayor,
Oh, Councilor Heisen, sorry.
real quick, on that note, could we get a copy of your presentation
Yes.
in case we want to give anybody a visual?
Yeah, I'll email it
Thanks.
to everyone.
Fantastic.
Councilor Wassinger.
I will make the motion to adopt ordinance number 1814 to increase property tax by 1%.
Second.
Okay, you've heard the motion to adopt ordinance number 1814 to increase property tax by 1%. A motion by Wassinger, second by Munns. Any other questions? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. We are, thank you, Patricia. And we are moving to item number 6B, which is ordinance number 1809, amending Oak Harbor Municipal Code Section 19.36.080, temporary and special signs. And I see we have planner Ray Lindenberg at the podium. Welcome, Ray.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. I'm going to talk to you briefly about the kind of background and some of the steps that we went through to get where we're at tonight, and then go through some of the details of our proposed temporary sign ordinance. To start off with, the process that we've taken to get to this point. Back in December of 2015, the court case of Reed versus the town of Gilbert went before the Supreme Court, and the decision was made that certain aspects of sign codes were unconstitutional. And basically, in a very small nutshell, that if you regulate the signs by the content of what the sign says, then that can be found unconstitutional. And so a lot of municipal sign codes were caught up in that, and so therefore we as staff determined that our code had the same issue, and so we were going to need to change that. We went through a series of public meetings in October and November of 2016, and then into 2017. We had an open house where we presented our ideas with regard to how we were going to change our code to meet those new realities of the constitutional issues. And then we had a public hearing with the Planning Commission on June 27th. And then we had a couple workshops before you in the months of June and July. Now, the background here, again, is that Reed versus the town of Gilbert. And I won't go too deep into it again because we've reached the point, I think we've all discussed it, we're all familiar with it. So pretty much what happened there is the town of Gilbert, Arizona, their sign code was determined to be unconstitutional based on the fact that they had many different sign types, and those sign types were all defined by what their message was. And that was determined to not meet a form of strict scrutiny. And strict scrutiny is defined up there, and pretty much what that's saying is that there needs to be a compelling governmental interest for how these signs are regulated, and so that's what we're facing right now. So when we went through the staff review and discussion of our existing sign code, we were coming up with some new ideas of how we might be able to regulate the signs. And the idea that we came up with was a sign type matrix. And essentially what that does is that takes the definitions of signs and what a sign is, and instead of assigning a different sign category by its message, we're assigning different sign categories by the actual physical characteristics of the sign itself. Is it made of cardboard? Is it made of fabric? Is it a plywood sign? Rather than saying, this is a garage sale sign or this is a real estate sign. That reduces, or it takes away the messaging from the definition, and therefore we can regulate it in special ways rather than going through and regulating a for sale sign differently than we would regulate a sign that says that somebody's having a garage sale or something like that. So going through, again, what we did is we discussed the concept for the sign type matrix. There's plenty of discussion out there with planners across the nation, how they're going to handle this, discussion at the American Planning Association conference. So we went through a whole bunch of different ideas on this to come up with what we have now. The Association of Washington Cities also developed a model sign code that didn't have the matrix in it, but it was kind of folded in a way to help us come up with something that would stand any kind of scrutiny from a court case. So what we have is now what we call a form-based sign code. We feel it's a new concept in sign regulation. It's based on the idea of form-based zoning. The concept is strengthened by Justice Alito's concurring opinion, the non-exhaustive list of some rules that would not be content-based, including size, location, lighting, fixed and changing messages, etc., could be used to regulate the signs. Another key concept that we had, even going back before the Supreme Court decision, are some guiding principles for sign regulation being time, place, and manner. And we explicitly put time, place, and manner in the matrix so that you can see this is how we're doing it. Through the public outreach, when we developed the draft code, we went through the public outreach process. We had the public open house in April. We coordinated with the Chamber of Commerce in September to do a mass email campaign to solicit comments from business owners and from the community. To be honest, we didn't get a lot. The thing is about that, when you don't get a lot of comments, it either tells you that there's nothing wrong or it tells you that people might not be paying attention. We're hoping that in this case it's that there's nothing wrong. We have not gotten a groundswell of people telling us that our sign code is in bad shape. So what we did is the sign regulations within this new code are very similar to the sign regulations in the old code. The key being that we're not radically changing our sign code. We're not saying that you can't have these signs anymore. We're just telling you in a different way how you can have the signs. So the two components of the proposed sign code are universal regulations to start off with, and then a sign type matrix. And those universal regulations will apply to all signs. And there will also be some specific key components in there that will be regulations about signs in park areas and things like that. But the main part of the code is the sign type matrix. And as noted in the matrix, the key concepts of time, place, and manner are addressed. The time refers to the amount of time the temporary sign may remain. The place outlines specific numbers of particular signs that can be in a location. And the manner discusses the way in which the message is delivered. So this is our draft sign type matrix, and it got expanded out to Oh, sorry. I wanted to show you that we do have that time, place, and manner on the margins right there. So it's specifically outlined within the code itself. So expanding out each of the sign types, I'm going to go into these in a little bit of detail here. We have a Type A sign. This we call, quote unquote, one sheet, because it's one sheet of plywood, 8 feet by 4 feet. It doesn't have to be that exact, 8 foot by 4 foot dimension. It's a 32 square foot maximum sign. Rather than calling this a real estate sign or something along those lines, we're calling it a Type A sign. And its manner is the size, the materials, and the installation that you see on that lower portion of the matrix square. So moving on, we have different sign types again. So you have a half sheet, 16 square feet. Where it can be located in the commercial industrial areas, multifamily residential, what we did is we used the different land use categories from our comprehensive plan, and each of those the commercial industrial corresponds with the zone districts that are within that land use category directly out of our comprehensive plan. So we have a quarter sheet, and that one is smaller, 8 square feet. A yard sign. And you can see that these are all sign types that people commonly use. And the thing is about it too is the beauty and the flexibility of this sign code, in my mind at least, is that it doesn't restrict you in any way to say that you have to have 4 square feet or it has to look exactly like this sign. That's just a maximum and a guideline. We have Type E and F, which are ground banner, which would stick into the ground, and a wall banner, which would hang from a wall or a fence. Again, specific numbers and criteria for those signs. Type G, a small A-frame sign. Sits on the ground, doesn't get installed in any way or drilled into the ground in any way. 6 square feet maximum size. We have a larger A-frame sign. And the reason for having 2 similar but different size signs is to allow certain types of signs in different areas. Light pole banners. Feather banners, also known as blade flags and et cetera, different names. But again, the name doesn't really matter because we have it described in the manner section there in the matrix. Have a ground flag, a pole flag, and then we have the sign walker. And what the sign walker is essentially is it's somebody who's holding on to a sign. We have a maximum size for that. Practically, it's only going to be able to be a certain dimension anyway. But the key there is that it's not quote unquote installed in the ground. It's handheld, and there are the requirements and the standards that go along with that you can't impede traffic. And there's safety issues that are built in again to that first section that are the universal standards as well. So the implementation here, the relation to the existing code, staff has made every attempt to ensure that the new form-based code is substantively the same as our existing code. We don't want to change things around, make it so that certain signs are no longer allowed and other signs have changed around and things like that. So we're trying to make it so that it's as similar as possible. So the transition between the two is relatively painless. We don't have a situation where we have an enforcement problem or we have a proliferation of a certain type of sign, whereas another type of sign might have to disappear. The new version is intended to be simpler and easier to administer for city staff. It's also intended to be simpler for those who are looking to put out signs. We're just trying to keep it simple and make it so that it's easy to understand for everybody. Now, one of the things we discussed as a staff and one of the things that did come up in the Planning Commission is the idea of charging fees for temporary signs. And this is something we haven't done in Oak Harbor previously. And based on the pros and cons that I went through in that little chart on your staff report there in the agenda bill, we didn't see any really good reason to do that, honestly. Based on the equal weight of the pros and cons, and there was no clear mandate to do that, we have chosen not to at this time propose any fees for temporary signs. So this is something that, if it becomes an issue in the future, we can certainly revisit, but for now we're gonna stick with that idea. Enforcement. As a practical matter, staff anticipates that it's going to be pretty much identical to current enforcement situation. And that being in practice, we respond to complaints about signs. We don't go out and drive around looking for signs that are illegal. We just don't have the resources to do that. It's going to remain the same. The enforcement text as part of the code is in a different section than what's being changed right now, so we're not changing any of that. And then also along those same lines, the relation of the temporary sign code and permanent signs, because we're just changing the section of the code that talks about temporary signs, there'll be no changes to our permanent sign code at this time. And then the timing of the effective date, you might notice that we moved that back to January 1st. And the reasoning behind that is to allow for your summer festivals, your election season, your Christmas and holiday type displays, all that can kind of move through, be done under the current code, and then on January 1st we can start enforcing the new code and also start an education process to let business owners and citizens know of the new requirements as we move into 2018. So that's my presentation, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Okay, before we ask questions from the council, I'd like to open it to the public, see if anyone has any input or any questions. Okay, seeing none. Yes, Councilor Munns.
Thank you. You were mentioning education and making sure this didn't even start till 2018. Is there a way maybe to reach out to the Chamber of Commerce and offer to do a presentation at one of their luncheons, which seems to be one of their biggest attended events? Because I would think it would, kill two birds with one stone in a sense. You get the word out, it's a friendly crowd, and you can probably get more feedback on, it looks like this, but does that really mean it's changed kind of
Right.
thing? I was just thinking it might.
Yeah, I think that's a great
It's better to
idea.
be the first one to offer than to wait for, well, they'll just come and ask us. I think
Yeah.
we should be proactive and.
I agree, and I think that's what staff has thought all along, is let's get out ahead of this so we don't have to try and reel everybody back in from a certain standpoint, so yeah.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Okay, Councilor Servadius.
I appreciate all your work on this, Ray, and everyone that was involved. This is a fairly lengthy process. Basic question I had on the A-frames, when you list a size predominantly in square feet, is that per side or total square footage?
That would be per side. I believe that in the code it talks about the face of a sign and the measurement of that, so I would interpret that to be each side. If that's not explicit, that would be the interpretation, and we could certainly make a minor tweak to affect
I was just trying to contemplate, because we see these signs all around town, the A-frames, so 12 square feet. If that's only 2 feet, I'm looking at the podium, maybe 2 feet by 3 feet, that's not a very big sign. If that was 6 on each side, gives you a total of 12. So 4 by 3, I mean, it's up to you guys to enforce it.
The way that it reads right here is it says 12 square feet and 4 feet high. So the assumption and the interpretation that I would make on that is that the sign is 4 feet high up to 3 feet wide on
Okay.
each side.
Okay.
Okay. Councilor Heisen.
Thank you. Just a quick comment. I think it was smart not to incorporate any kind of a fee for this, just from the perspective of enforcement. I mean, trying to do a sign fee for all of the signs would be really labor intensive, and then enforcing it would be virtually impossible. While this was an extremely complicated process with a lot of details, I appreciate that you guys didn't make it harder than it needed to be. So, good job, Planning
Thank you.
Commission.
Thanks.
Any other? Yes, Councilor Wassinger.
I have a question. The only part that says anything about content is that it can't contain obscene language, symbols, or images. Is that something that you guys have guidance on, or is that sort of a case by case? If someone brings something to your attention, who gets to determine if something is an obscene symbol or image? Especially the language, I can kind of understand, but.
So that's one of those I'll know it when I see it situations.
Okay.
And the reason that that you put in there that you can regulate obscenity is because you can. That isn't protected speech. But it is also a case-by-case analysis that would require looking at the case law and kind of determining where the speech fell with regard to whether or not it would qualify as obscenity.
Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There are a couple of concerns received via email, and one of the concerns mentioned by Ms. Heisen concerning I got the word here, enforcement. And the other one is concerning promotion, like anniversaries, reopening, grand reopening, and limiting the number of days for that banner for 30 days. And the concern coming from Mr. and Mrs. Jeffrey Mack of the Whitby Jeweler, and they're concerned about limiting it to 30 days, and they say that it might take more than 30 days to have the consumers respond on their advertisement. And I've seen one of these currently. There's one restaurant in town. There's a banner there. It says, like, reopening with the new management or former management, and it's been there for 6 months or so. The question is, who's the city's code enforcer, and how will it be enforced to get down those banners? Like, there's one on the ordinance that if the sign is not in compliance with the general standard, the city staff may remove those signs. Who will be the code enforcer to do that?
Yeah, that's a good question and an important distinction there. Your example of having a grand opening sign or a under new management or whatever sign, that the content doesn't matter again, but if it's been up for more than the prescribed amount of time, then that would be enforced on a complaint basis. Say, for instance, somebody came in and said, hey, this person's had their sign up for 2 months and they're only supposed to have it up for 30 days. Then we would go out and do the investigation. Our code enforcement officer would take care of that. That goes through the building department, and it's Cody West right now who does all the code enforcement. He does like weeds and stuff like that too. So that would be one situation. The situation where it says that city staff may remove signs is typically going to be if you have a sign that is located in a place that's causing a safety hazard. Say, for instance, somebody's A-frame sign blew down and it's now sitting in the middle of the highway. We can pick that up. And so that's kind of the distinction there. If it's causing an immediate concern, a safety concern, then we would remove it. City staff could remove that. If it's something else that, it's a sign that's been up too long based on what the code says, then that would be a code enforcement issue.
So if the non-compliance will be coming from established business, city staff will not be able to remove that. They will be notified that they're not in compliance.
Correct. That would be the typical process that we go through for most code enforcement issues.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Other questions, input? Okay. Recommended action is to adopt the ordinance. What would council like to do? Councilor Servatius.
Just had a question, Mayor, real quick. And I didn't key in on this when I read those emails. The light question, steady running lights that was addressed in email in 4C, was that a misinterpretation of that?
I'm sorry, I didn't print out that email.
Okay,
What
it's
was
under
it?
general promotions,
Mhm.
and under general promotions 4C, page 143 in our packet, it says or you probably have this, no clusters of flags or pennants, ribbons, streamers, shimmering discs, spinners, twirlers, or propellers, strings of lights, moving, flashing, rotating, or blinking. So it references that. The email said, in reference to item 4C, clear, steady, running string lights on a building or landscaping should be allowed year-round on Whidbey Island, whether it is downtown or any of the other 3 retail business districts. We don't, I mean, I see lights, I think they're pretty
Yeah.
year-round. Was that a misinterpretation of that 4C?
No, that would be correct. But the thing is about that chapter is lifted almost word for word from our existing code. So our existing code apparently doesn't allow that now. Again, that's one of those situations where we're going to respond to a complaint. So, it could be removed. We could strike that from there. I don't sense that it's an issue, and perhaps it should stay there in case it's a nuisance situation. So
if you received a complaint, I mean, I can picture them, I drive around, I know where they're at. They look very, as long as they're well-kept.
yeah,
If you received a complaint, your directive then would be to go to contact that business and encourage them to take them down.
yes.
Would that then percolate back to us? So they could, I'm assuming that person could come and request a code change.
Yeah.
We'll just address it when we get there.
That's certainly your decision. The thing is about it, the way I see that is the reason that lights would be complained about is if they were in some sort of derelict condition, And so that might be a legitimate reason to complain about somebody having quote unquote holiday lights or fairy lights or whatever you want to call them. Otherwise, I don't think that there's going to be a complaint about that. You never know, and it could be one of those situations where it is truly a nuisance to somebody, or it might not be. It's hard to say.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, what would the council like to do? Councilor Wassinger?
I move to adopt ordinance number 1809, amending OHMC section 19.36.080, temporary and special signs with an effective date of December 1st, 2017.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second to adopt it's as listed in your recommended action. I won't read the entire motion again, but the motion's by Wassinger, second by Campbell. Any other input or questions? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. Nice job, Ray. Okay, we will now move on to our last item for the evening, and that is item number 9A, Resolution 17-22, Lodging Tax Advisory Committee Awards for the 2% grant applications, and I see we have our Finance Director back, Patricia Soul.
Thank you. So the resolution is 1722. There are two actions that we'll be requesting. I'll go through each one of them separately. The first action is requesting the adoption of Resolution 1722, approving the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee awards for the 2018 2% grant applications. This is an annual process for bringing forward the recommendations from the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee award. The LTAC process began on August 15, 2017, when Council referred the 2018 lodging tax funds to the Lodging Tax Advisory Committee for consideration at least 45 days prior to taking action. The request for grant applications was published on September 9th of 2017, with applications due back to the city on October 6th. The LTAC committee convened on October 30th, 76 days after being referred by the City Council, well after the 45-day consideration required. There were requests from 15 organizations for a total of $283,645, with $115,000 awarded via contract to the Greater Oak Harbor Chamber of Commerce for operations in 2017 on a 3-year contract. There was $135,000 available to award grantors. The committee used their process to narrow down the amounts requested to award the available $135,000 to 13 grantors as indicated in the resolution. The council can take one of the following actions. They can approve the resolution. They can not approve any of it and send it back to LTAC for reconsideration, or they can remove individual items. They cannot change the amount recommended by LTAC, and this will restart the 45 days of consideration required. So that's the first action. The second action on here is to authorize the finance director to execute the one-year contract for LTAC award in the amount of $64,000 to the Greater Oak Harbor Chamber of Commerce for Marketing 365. This action is necessary due to the fact that the contract is over our $30,000 limit in our OHMC Article 2.390.010. The rest of the contracts are all under the $30,000, so it doesn't require council approval. And that is all.
Okay, before we tackle this up here at the council, I'll open it up to the public, see if anybody's got any input, and nope, seeing none. Councilor Olmberg.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question on item number 5, awarding, number 6. Joint Advisory Board International Tourism Program for $5,000. Who is International Tourism Program, and is that an overlap in promoting Oak Harbor events in addition to the chamber? And a third part of that question is, why do they merit $5,000 comparing it to other events that bring people in here for several days and up to a week?
If it's all right with you, I would like to allow Joel to answer that. The committee is the one that did those considerations.
Yep. No problem. I was just pulling up their application to give you more detail on what that all involved. So this was for Island County Tourism. It's an ongoing effort. It's an International Food, Wine, and Travel Writers Association conference that they are hosting here. And it will be held, the actual conference will be held in October of 2018, so next year. So it is they're going to have a flight of people come out in May from the 6th to the 11th, and then they'll have, that's the actual conference date, and there'll be a follow-up after that. So they're promoting a much larger campaign and bringing a group of professional food and wine writers here, is what that application is
To
for.
Oak Harbor?
To not just, I don't think it's Oak Harbor specifically, they've got a list of, they're touring through the area. The actual conference, I'll tell you where it's being held. They'll be all over Woodby. I'm trying to remember where it's at specifically. So there's a post-conference trip. Trying to see if they say exactly where they stay. Lodging includes established brands, Best Western Candlewood Suites, as well as appealing to the Old Holland Inn and Coachman Inn, Woodby SeaTac Shuttle. They've worked with them to be part of that process. So it's going to be, they're actually going to tour them throughout the island, trying to leapfrog from Oak Harbor, was our understanding of the application.
And then is there a rationale as to why the amount of money compared to like Whidbey Island Marathon, Hydros for Heroes, Race Week, and Oak Harbor Music Festival? I mean, Oak Harbor Music Festival got a fair amount. There's a lot of people who stay in here for 3 days, but I'm looking particularly at, this is a promotion thing that almost, in my limited knowledge of what you guys do on that board, it almost seems like it's a chamber promotion thing. And the chamber has a contract to complete $115,000 for, I think, the next 2 years or 3 years. And they're awarded a marketing for $365 at $64. So there's a lot of marketing going on in here and promotion, and I'm all for that. But the rationale for events here, for a conference for $5,000, I don't understand what the rationale is.
Sure. Let me hit on a couple more highlights, and I'll give you what I think was the general consensus behind that award. So it's going to kick off. There's actually lodging. It says will be confirmed with the coachman in for lodging. The opening event will be at the Oak Harbor. The opening reception will be at the Oak Harbor Yacht Club. Fraser's for a board dinner. Would-be SeaTac shuttle will provide transportation. Some of the events will occur at Camp Casey. So it's an ongoing conference, and I think the consensus was this is a longer term event in the articles, and hopefully the exposure that will come out of that is where the true value is, not necessarily, you know, the group of people that stay in the tax, but it's the marketing efforts that they'll hopefully leave Whidbey Island and Oak Harbor and go out and write about this area was the investment that was made.
Who is the promoter, the individual, the organization is International Tourism Program? I mean,
No, that was the name of the campaign or the market. It's all under the Island County Joint Advisory or Joint Tourism Board.
so it's an Island County application.
Correct.
Okay.
The name of the event, I guess, would be called the International Food, Wine, and Travelers Association.
Okay.
Travel Writers Association Conference.
Thank you. Thank you, Joel. Thank you, Patricia.
Okay, anyone else? Yes, Councilor Heisen.
This relates a little bit to Councilmember Almberg's question. The LTAC committee works hard on this, so I have no desire to go in and micromanage the decisions, but I think in previous, in previous years, the actual applications have been in our agenda packets, and being able to see that level of detail is helpful in answering some of those questions ahead of time. Just food for thought, it would be helpful to have that information.
So
That is
what
all.
we might do there, it was good, we had a
Go ahead.
we had a debrief today, so maybe they were significant, 15 packets. What might make sense is we just put a link in our packets, and then if anybody wants to go pull those, they'll be publicly available to pull down.
Great.
Okay.
Good input.
Councilor Umber?
Thank you, Mayor, again. Patricia, I have another question related to finance. We have X number of dollars in this account, and we do not allocate all of that
Correct.
during this part. Can you give me an idea what the total amount is in the account and what is obligated?
Yes. So as of September 30, the balance in the account was $665,876. We have estimated revenue of another $25,000 coming in. We have commitments for the rest of the spending for 2017. We have commitments to the interlocal with the Island County Joint Tourism Fund, the $115,000 for 2018 and 19 for the Chamber of Commerce. And when we look into that through 2019, our projected cash is $377,518. And that's irrespective of any revenues that would be coming in 2018, 19, or 20. This is just where we currently are in cash, how much we anticipate to get through the end of 17, and then what we've committed, currently have signed contracts for.
So let me just simply review what you said. The bottom line on this is approximately $377,000 after all of our obligations.
Yes, and before counting revenues for 18 and 19.
Right. And also, those funds can be used for a city project. And I'm not going to specify a project, but I will just illustrate, for example, reconstruction or relocation of the windmill or splash park types of things. Is that correct? Can those funds be used for public projects like that?
I would think that that would need to be referred to the LTAC committee to be able to do that, so it'd go through the same referral process as the grants did, and then the committee would have to consider that. Is that correct? Okay.
And the clarification, sorry, if I may, Mayor? Yes, go ahead. Is the question, do they need to be tourism or operations and maintenance related? Obviously, they go through a referral process, but do they have to be related to tourism or operations and maintenance?
Correct.
Yeah, it'd have to be related to tourism, marketing and operations of special events and festivals, operations of tourism-related facilities owned or operated by nonprofit organizations, operations and capital expenditures of tourism-related facilities owned by municipalities or public facilities districts.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Patricia.
Councilor Servatius.
Just one thought on that. I didn't know if Councilmember Allenberg was going to make a suggestion. I've asked several times, and I will continue to ask of my peers or anyone, what I would like to see with some of that reserve, because we have a decent reserve built up there, is ideas for projects where we could possibly leverage that into a bigger project. So if we could come up with a grant that required a 25 or a 50% match, well, if we could come up with 200 or 300 of that, all of a sudden we've magnified that exponentially. So that is my hope. I continue to throw that out there. If anyone has a good idea, we'd love to hear it, whether it's from the council or the public, just to try and find a way. Some folks have said, well, just shoot all those funds out into the public for all the events in 1 year. And for me personally, I think we could use that, especially combined with grants, to do something bigger and more long-lasting.
Councilor Allenberg.
Thank you, Mayor. I would support that too. Propose to recommend to the LTAC to set aside funds, pre-approved funds for the purpose of using it as a matching fund. For example, if we have a grant that requires a 15% match, you leverage some of those funds for that. Thank you.
Okay. Councilor Eisen.
I move to adopt Resolution 17-22.
Second.
So we've got a motion at this time to adopt Resolution 1722. Motion by Heisen. I'll give the second to Munns. Any other comments? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. And we're looking for a second motion.
Oh, yes. So the second motion is to authorize the finance director to execute the one-year contracts for LTAC, 2% award amount of $64,000 to the Greater Oak Harbor Chamber of Commerce for their Marketing 365.
Do you have a question about that?
No, I'm going to make a motion.
He wants to make that motion. Would you read that again? It's not printed that way in our packet.
Yeah, make sure
Okay.
Nikki gets that.
We can go off the one in there too. I just, maybe I didn't type my talking notes up exact. Hold on. Did you have it? Thank you. So authorize the finance director to execute the contracts for joint 2% advisory board with the Greater Oak Harbor Chamber of Commerce Marketing 365.
Okay, so that is the way it's written in the packet. And,
And I make a motion that states just exactly that.
okay.
I'll second it.
So we have a motion that, to authorize finance director to execute the contracts for 2% advisory board with the Greater Oak Harbor Chamber of Commerce, Marketing 365. Motion by Campbell, second by Munns. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously.
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Well, quick question.
We're adjourned.
Are you keying in on what I'm keying in on? I think there might have been a typo there, Patricia. When I read this, it made perfect sense in my head, but as I re-looked at it, it's not with the joint advisory. That one's 75 or 5,000.
Okay, so that should have said LTAC, not joint.
Correct.
LTAC advice. Good catch.
So where the word joint is in this type motion, it should say LTAC. Is that correct?
One moment. Mayor.
Lodging tax, 2% advisory committee, so it should say lodging tax.
Okay. Any questions or concerns about that? Do we need to go back and amend that? Or
We've got a motion we approved and passed. We need to amend the wording somehow.
Use the wording significant.
The actual application packets weren't in in your packet,
Correct.
so the information that you have is based on what's in this, right?
Correct.
Okay. So then this needs to be undone.
How would we do that? And how would we do that?
So help
A
me.
motion to reconsider previous, I would suggest a motion to reconsider your previous approval of the resolution.
Okay, so we have a motion by Mr. Campbell to reconsider the previous approved
Yes.
resolution.
And a second.
So we have a motion and a second to reconsider that.
Right, so you're
Okay, motion
undoing
by-
your approval of the motion, and then you're going to move to amend the resolution to change the language.
Okay, so motion to reconsider. Campbell motion, Munns second. Any question? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so now we're going to make a motion to amend. Somebody is to amend it.
So I think it should be authorize the finance director, I move to authorize, I move to amend. Actually, I can just move, I don't need to amend.
No, you would make a motion to authorize the finance director to execute a contract with the Chamber
Right.
of Commerce for the marketing
Right, so we
program.
undid that, so thank you. I move to authorize the finance director to execute the contract with the Greater Oak Harbor Chamber of Commerce for Marketing 365.
Second.
Okay, does anyone need that motion reread?
Can we just pause for a moment to allow the staff to, they're still digging through the pages, so before we vote.
Sure.
I think we have everything okay. I was just going over it with Mrs. Barza on that now, but I think your motion is good there. Part B is shown in your agenda packet. There's just a little bit of funny wording there where it says the Joint 2% Advisory Board. That could be misconstrued as the island-wide marketing effort with the Joint Advisory Board at Island County. So that wording there just needs to come out. And the contract is just with the Chamber of Commerce.
And the motion that was made said that, authorized the finance director to execute the contracts with the Greater Oak Harbor Chamber of Commerce, Marketing 365. Motion by Servadius, second by Munns. Is that clear? Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. And I think we've got a
And I
motion to
made-
adjourn.
Made a motion, but nobody seconded it, so to adjourn.
Well, then we'll just adjourn anyway, 7:21.